When Sony first released their new 1000 XM3s, it was a big deal for two reasons. Now, obviously, they upgraded the internals so that they perform overall better, but they also improved their build quality and design so that they look a lot better than their predecessors as well. And thankfully, the new Sony XB700s have gone through the same treatment. Now, even though I really do like the new Sony XB700s, I'm extra excited about them because they are clearly giving us a preview of what to expect from the upcoming Sony XB1000s. Now, just so that we're clear, the Sony WH-XB700s are not the replacement for the Sony XB900N ones. The XB700s are the replacement for the Sony XB650BTs, which are slotted below the XB950N ones. The Sony XB700s retail for $130, and if you want to pick these headphones up, I'll have them linked down below. Like I've said in the past, Sony's headphones have always performed very well, but tend to suffer when it came to build quality and design. But ever since Sony released their WH-700Ns and 1000 XM3s, they've been focusing on improving the build quality and design of their headphones. Plainly said, the XB700s look like miniature versions of the 1000 XM3s, and that's a very good thing. These headphones can be laid down flat. When you expand their headband, there's a very sturdy click to them, and when you flex the headband, there's zero cracking and squeaking. The XB700s have a new, sleeker, low-profile design compared to the chunky industrial design found on the XB650BTs. The XB700s no longer have the glossy plastic found on the XB650BTs, which means they're no longer fingerprint magnets. But most importantly, gone is that super wide headband that was prominent on a lot of Sony's older headphones, especially on their extra bass headphones. But the changes don't end there. Sony also improved the padding on the ear cups found on the XB700s. The cushions on the XB700s are slightly softer than the outgoing XB650s, and the leatherette used on the XB700s feels slightly less plasticky. But Sony even went as far to improve the mesh found inside the ear cups that covers the drivers. Now, even though you wouldn't notice these small changes unless you had these two headphones side by side to compare them, it's very cool to see Sony is clearly trying to overhaul their headphones, because for the longest, build quality and design has been Sony's weak point. Now, when it comes to fit, keep in mind these are on-ear headphones, and personally, I always try to stay away from on-ear headphones. But after using these headphones extensively for a few days, I found them to be fairly comfortable. They have a neutral fit, as in they're not snug, but they're not loose, they're just there. But thanks to their slightly softer padding, they are noticeably more comfortable than the XB650BTs. And I can confidently say the Sony XB700s are big head approved. Regarding tech specs, one of the biggest improvements the XB700s has over the XB650s is USB-C charging. Now, this is a big deal because for the most part, USB-C charging has been reserved for more premium headphones like the Sony 1000 XM3s or Surface headphones. So I think it is pretty cool that USB-C charging is making its way to these $130 headphones. When it comes to battery life, the XB700s have an advertised battery life of 30 hours, just like the XB650BTs. But now they have fast charging. Now, admittedly, the fast charging on the XB700s isn't that amazing because a 10-minute charge will only get you an hour and a half of playback time. Personally, I was hoping we see fast charging similar to the 1000 XM3s, where a 10-minute charge will get you 5 hours playback time. But I think we can expect those numbers from the upcoming Sony XB1000s. Another improvement on the XB700s is that they've been upgraded from Bluetooth 4.0 to Bluetooth 4.2. Overall, I noticed the XB700s had zero latency whenever I would watch Netflix on my iPhone, whereas the XB650BTs did have like a slight quarter-second delay. But the XB700s did have a slight delay whenever I would watch YouTube videos on my iPhone. But both of these headphones had zero latency across the board whenever used with an Android device or Windows machine. I guess the magic in my iPhone is off calibration or something, I don't know. But unfortunately, the Sony XB700s can still only be connected to one device at a time, which means if you have a phone and a computer, which I like to think most people do, you can't simply just hot swap from one device to another. Sony, we gotta get multi-device connectivity going because you are so close So close. Ah, that one came from that heart. Now, when it comes to sound quality, as the name implies, the XB700s are a part of Sony's extra bass headphone lineup geared toward people who really like bass. But unlike the XB650s, which have a fixed bass-heavy sound signature, the new XB700s can connect to Sony's headphones app. And from here, you can adjust exactly how much bass you want. For comparison, the bass on the XB650s is equivalent to the bass on the XB700s when they're set to 7, which coincidentally, that's where I like to keep my XB700s. And when the bass on the 1000 XM3s is set to 10, it's equivalent to the bass on the XB700s when they're set to 5. Now, even though yes, the XB700s have more bass than the XB650s, they also suffer from far less distortion. Now, the soundstage and instrument separation on the XB700s isn't amazing, but you're picking these up for the bass, and in that department, they don't disappoint. And as a side note, I actually found the XB700s are great for watching movies, because when explosions happen on screen, you really get to feel them more than you would with normal headphones. But I really do think it's important to point out that if you're an audiophile, you really want to steer clear from the XB700s. With clear bass turned on, these headphones are going to focus solely on the bass. Depending on the intensity of the bass of whatever you're listening to, you're going to notice the EQ on these headphones constantly change to make sure the bass on these headphones doesn't bottom out, which means you could be listening to a song and hear that vocals are very prominent. Then the bass line kicks in or the beat drops, and when the vocals come back in, you're going to notice they're not as prominent as they were 20 seconds ago. Obviously, Sony is doing this to deliver the best listening experience possible with an emphasis on the bass. But if you're a purist, you're not gonna like this. But if you have the clear bass on these headphones set to 0, then you're going to have a flat sound signature and the EQ isn't going to be constantly changing itself. But unfortunately, you can't fully customize the EQ on these headphones like you can on a lot of other Sony headphones. Again, you can only adjust the intensity of the bass, and the EQ is then going to dynamically change. Personally, I think what Sony should do is give you the clear bass option like they do now, but also give you the option to customize your own static EQ. So this way, you can use one or the other. I think this is well within reason, and Sony could easily add a custom EQ option through a software update like they did with the Sony WH-XB700N a few months after its release. It's just an idea. The Sony XB700s also now feature both Google Assistant and Alexa voice assistant integration. Personally, I find Google Assistant to be more useful than Alexa, but you can summon your voice assistant by pressing the new custom button found on the left ear cup, like this. Turn on the studio lights.
Okay, turning on 3 lights.
Even though I am a really big fan of voice assistants in my headphones, I think Sony should give you the option to remap the new custom button to turn extra bass on or off on your headphones. Even though extra bass is cool and all, it can get a little overwhelming when listening to podcasts. And since there's no way to manually toggle extra bass on or off on these headphones, you gotta open up the app every single time. And trust me, I've tried multiple button combinations. But again, this is something Sony can easily fix through a software update. And in general, the buttons on the XB700s are all new compared to the buttons on the XB700BTs. Personally, I've always been a really big fan of Sony's switch and volume rocker setup, so I do hate to see it go on the XB700s. But the new buttons on the XB700s do exactly what they need to do. They're easy to find, they're easy to tell apart, and they have a lot of tactile feedback, which is never a bad thing. And finally, here's the microphone test, and unfortunately, it's not the best. It sounds very muffled. So I wouldn't recommend taking phone calls with these headphones, but this audio clip is being recorded by the microphone found on the Sony XB700, so you could be the judge of that. But overall, I really like that Sony is actively improving the build quality and design of their new headphones. I feel the XB700s look and feel all around much better than the XB650BTs. The addition of USB-C charging on the XB700s is a small but very much appreciated upgrade, and being able to adjust the bass on the XB700s is also another welcomed feature that previously wasn't available on the XB650BTs. The bass on these headphones sounds much more natural than the bass found on the $150 Skull Candy Crushers, and unlike the Skull Candy Crushers, the XB700s are big head approved. Even though the XB700s still have some room for improvement, I'm pumped to check out the Sony XB1000s. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.